Welcome to the Business SOS podcast. This is Rich Sierra, President of Florida Small Business Legal Center. This is episode 86 of Business SOS as we continue our countdown to episode 100 and hopefully in about 2 months. So we're very excited about that, or maybe 3. Today we have a special show. We have an author, and we're going to be talking today about the Strategic Sales Leader book, Mastering the Art of Vision, Strategy, and Execution. Put it here. And we have with us Derek Wellington Johnson. Before I introduce you, I want to tell you a little bit more about him. Derek is the author of Strategic Sales Leader, Mastering the Art of Vision, Strategy, and Execution. He's a sales expert with over 2 decades of experience in high-tech sales leadership, working with both startups and established companies. He's been quoted in major publications such as Inc. Magazine, PC World, and has served as an advisor for leaders navigating challenging times. He is a growth expert. He'll help grow companies grow. Today we're going to talk about the practical lessons that he will offer today to business owners, focusing on how sales leadership can drive growth and success. And welcome, Derek.
It's great to be here. Thank you,
Share
Rich.
the book again. I'm excited. When I read your book, it reminded me when I took my sales management class back in college, University of Tampa, and it really a lot of the concepts that you mentioned in the book remind me of that sales management, time, management, territory, strategy. So it kind of brought me back a few years, like 40 years, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Right from college. And also the military quotes as well. So tell me what inspired you to write this book.
Well, one of the things I realized in my decades in the business was that most organizations lack a cohesive sales strategy. And I realized that in order to reach the goals that we have, regardless of what your economy is doing, your ecosystem in your own vertical, you have to have a structure in place. And there's a lot of books on sales and selling, but there are not a lot of books on actual sales leadership.
And so tell me more. I mean, you have a background in the military, startups, corporate leadership. How did that shape you in terms of writing the book?
Ooh, great question. So my father served with General Patton in World War II. My father was a tank commander. So the
Wow.
first exposure I had to what a great leader was literally from my mouth of my father. And I was fascinated by that in terms of what it takes to become the kind of leader that people want to fight for and much less die for, right? And then in my time in the military, you get to experience and exposure to great leadership and poor leadership. And frankly, there's both. I served with some of the finest people in the world, and also there were some slugs. And so I got to see what great leadership looks like up close. And then fast forward to my time in sales in the technology world, same thing. Great leadership, poor leadership, either or will determine the success or failure of a company. So as a business owner, you have to be the best leader and the best sales leader in the organization, but no doubt.
I think, first of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for your father's service as well. Tell me about your experience in the military.
Oh, well. So I wanted to travel the world and do things. What was interesting is that I was in 5 commands and I never left San Diego. So I had this wild hair. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Sadly, I never completed the training, but it was my time in the service was a great experience. So I went to boot camp in San Diego. Then I went to my A school, which is your specific training for medic. I was corpsman in San Diego. Then I was attached to the Marines. Love my Marines, hoorah, in San Diego. And then I finally, it was a process back then to get your orders to go to BUDS, which is basic underwater demolition SEAL. And then I went to BUDS, and at the time, and I'm old, this is a long time ago. Some of the instructors were some of the last Vietnam era Navy SEALs. Hard men, just great guys. And I learned a lot from those guys. Unfortunately, I was in an accident, and my Navy career ended soon after. After my accident, I ended up in Naval Hospital San Diego, did my rehab, got my honorable discharge. But it was an amazing experience because when you're around that level of performance or that level of greatness, you start to see the world differently. Your perspective changes because you realize, wait, there's a level that can be attained that I want to strive for. And it left this indelible mark in my soul, in that I decided I want to reach that level or strive for that level of excellence in anything I do.
So, wow, sorry about your accident. The how did you make the transition into like a sales strategy or sales management, if I was going to characterize it that way? Tell me more about your
So,
education. How do you got to this point?
well, so I got into sales after I got in the military. I was like, well, what can I get into? And this is when the internet was new and exploding. So you're talking in the 90s, early 90s. I'm sorry, mid to late 90s. And I realized I was always in technology, and I realized that technology would be always in demand because it's ever changing. And then I ended up in the tech world, working for systems integrators, which is essentially the people who help you, business owners, make sense of all the different technology to use it to help you grow your business. So systems integrator.
We
And
could
I
have
did that for
used
many,
we
many
could have used
years.
you this morning as we were having technical problems.
Yes.
Yeah, we could
Yes.
have. But you're in
Yeah,
Vegas, so I'm
absolutely.
here in Florida,
Yeah.
so I really couldn't use your assistance. But I understand. Go ahead.
Yeah. And the thing about being in tech sales is that, and sales in general, and as a business owner, I think that business owners will appreciate this. At the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, the only thing that matters is the revenue. Did you win the business or did you lose the business? It's a zero-sum game. And so you get to the point where you start to learn and try different things, experiment. Also, when you go from one company to another company, you get exposure to a different perspective. And I think that's the thing that's hard on a lot of people, is that if you've been a business owner for a very long time, you're used to that industry, that cadence, that sales process, and you haven't been exposed to how other people do it. And that's the part that can hamper some business owners. It's, well, who else is doing it in a different way, maybe in a different industry, but maybe I can learn something from it that I can apply to my own business. So in sales, especially tech sales, generally speaking, the best sales people don't get into sales leadership or sales management. Why? Because it's a pay cut. In the sales world, especially the tech world, in most organizations, your sales are uncapped. No limit to what you can make. If you're smart, work hard, and working hard is pretty much a staple. Everyone works hard. But if you work smart and hard, you can make a tremendous amount of money. For me, frankly, I spent so many years on the road, and my wife and I joke about this, that we she was basically a single woman for half the week because I was on the road all the time, because I covered multi-state territories through
Okay.
most of my career. And you got to the point where I wanted to be home a little bit more. And also being on airplanes and stuck in airport lines and the shuttle, it's hard on your body. And you just decide, gosh, I can't do this anymore. So part of it was physically, it's just my body was just starting, I wouldn't say fall apart, but you start to, the back aches, and you're like, oh man, it's, lugging the demo boxes around, all that stuff, and being in airplanes or stuck in the tarmac for 3 hours because a storm hit you. I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. I also was drawn towards being able to mentor and train the next generation of salespeople. And so for me, the excitement of being able to be a mentor was fulfilling. And that was the thing that was lacking for me. It was the fulfillment of being able to change and improve someone else's life. And I really love that aspect of being a sales leader.
No, I think that's very important. You have three cores in your book. They're vision, strategy, and execution. Let's talk
Yeah.
about each one of them. Let's start with vision.
So the vision is your why. Why did you launch this business? I'm speaking specifically to business owners. Why did you launch this business? Were you scratching your own itch? Was it just to make the money? But the why is critical, and the why starts with the leadership. It's the vision that propels everything else. And you have to be very clear on the why is. It has to ignite a fire within your team. And when I say your team, I'm not talking about just about your sales team. I'm talking about everyone. I'm talking all the way down to a janitor if you have one. Everyone has to understand the vision of the organization, what you're striving to achieve, where you're trying to get to, and this is critical. And what is the individual's unique role to helping the organization get there?
I think that's very important, especially I'm a business owner, as you know, and I own my law practice. And, I've been now my 20th year of practice, and I have a team that I work with. So I think I am responsible for providing that leadership and that vision, and I'm leading it by example. So,
Right.
and everybody in the team has to be on the same page, otherwise it's just not going to work. But I understand perfectly what you're saying, that if that business owner does not share that vision with the staff, they're not going to understand where they're going to go. And you got
Yes,
to
it's
establish that
critical.
leadership.
And that's the foundation. That is one of the key pillars of the other two.
And not only having the vision, but communicating it to your team, and also for them buying into it as well.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned it. They have to buy into it because you can have the most amazing vision, but if each and every single member of your team does not buy into it, it's going to be problematic for you.
Yes, I agree with that. Let's talk about strategy as well.
Strategy is the what? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do to make that vision come to life? And a short way of saying it is strategy is doing the right things. Strategy is doing the right things. And the thing about strategy is that it's a step that I think most business owners miss. They might have a vision of what they want, they go straight to execution. But if you don't have the strategy of saying, okay, what are we going to do to make this vision come to life in terms of what's our marketplace? What are we trying to achieve? Who's our customer base? What are we offering them? How are we different? And here's the thing: it's not strategy is very dynamic. It's not something that you create, you write it down, and then you print it out and you put it in a binder somewhere and it sits on your bookshelf or wherever collecting dust. That's how most corporations do it. Strategy is very dynamic because the world is dynamic. And we were just talking before we started here about weather patterns and fires and all the different things you can't control. During COVID-19, what that crippled us was the supply chain issues. Semiconductor chips weren't arriving and what have you. So you have to have a strategy in place that encapsulates not just bringing your vision to life, but also what you're going to do if things intervene, because things will always intervene.
Yeah. And I think also strategy goes into how creative you are and utilizing the limited resources that you have, because business
Yes.
owners always have limited resources versus the goals that you have, and how to apply that effectively in order to accomplish your goal. I think that's key as part of the strategy.
It is key because it walks you. You have to walk through what am I doing against who am I competing against. So if you think about your strategy, let's take the visual of pool table, and you're trying to get your balls into corner pockets, side pockets, what have you. But you have your move. You hit your ball, and then the balls move around, and then your opponent comes in and they hit their balls, and they just messed up your layout, if you will. So you're not working in a vacuum. Your strategy is not in a void. It's going to be come up against and buttress against and hit and slam against all of your competitors. And the next part is who are you fighting against? Who are you competing against? Do you want to compete with them? Can you compete with them in a different way? What are the weaknesses of your competitors? What are the strengths of your competitors? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And again, it's one of those things, it's an ongoing process because we live in a very dynamic world. And you may be the market leader in your industry, let's say. But that can change very, very quickly. Just for fun, Blockbuster Video.
I remember
If
that,
you
yes.
think back to how I think at the peak Blockbuster Video, if memory serves me, had something like 4,000 or 4,500 stores nationwide, just in the U.S. And then this upstart Netflix comes along and blows them out of the water, which is good for you as a business owner, because if you're a small business owner, you can knock out the proverbial blockbuster in your industry if you're smart, if you outthink them, outgame, out strategize them.
Yeah. I think another aspect of strategy is basically what is the business owner, because sometimes we're our own worst enemies,
Hmm.
and we actually create our own obstacles to achieve our goals. So what is the business owner doing to prevent himself or herself from actually going forward? So that has to be analyzed as
Yeah.
well.
Well, there's that thing of overthinking, right? So General Patton said that a good plan executed today is much better than a perfect plan executed next week.
Yeah.
So so
Done
we
is better than
so we like
perfect. Yeah.
right. So we let perfect get in the way
Yeah.
of good. and the execution executing a strategy is critical. There's a great quote. It's one of my favorite quotes from a strategist called Colonel John Boyd, and he says, "Whomever can handle the fastest rate of change survives. Whomever can handle the fastest rate of change survives." And this is a man who literally wrote the book on fighter pilots for air warfare, air combat.
No,
The movies Top Maverick and Top Gun were loosely based on him.
really,
True
that's
story.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
John
awesome.
Boyd. And so it's your ability to and he created a whole thing, a strategic pattern. It's OODA loop. It's observe, orient, decide, act, and it's a cycle. So you observe what's going on around you. Again, as a business owner, you're observing your entire ecosystem, that world that you play in. And then you're like, okay, this is what's going on. Then you orient yourself to the reality of the threats coming at you. Then you decide what is my best move right now, decide, and you act. And the thing that Colonel John Boyd said is it's the OODA loop isn't just you do it one time. It's nonstop. It's a continual loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. Observe, orient, decide, act. And the problem with most business owners is they may do it once a year, once a quarter, but it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing. And whoever does it faster wins.
That's a great point, and I think now with an example of what we have now with the changes is artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and all the large language
Yes.
models coming in, and that's already affecting pretty much every job available now, and whoever does not really embrace this technology and learn it, they're going to be left behind. I mean,
Yes, I recently
yeah,
saw a demo that sent chills down my spine. It was for sales, and essentially it was a demo of an AI bot, and it was a woman's voice cold calling.
I've done those
And it
demos.
said,
Yeah,
"What's that?"
I've listened to those demos. Yes.
And what was interesting about the demo was that she sounded real. She had the ums, the ahs, the inflections. Uh, there's some good banter, and next thing you know, she'd booked an appointment
Yes,
for someone
and
in real time.
yes,
And so as a small business owner, you're thinking, well, hey, I can't afford a sales team right now. Well, guess what? Now there's some AI that's coming along that you give them the parameters and they're going to be able to make those calls for you, for example, assuming that's how you get your business. And it's going to sound very natural and be able to answer some basic objections and create appointments for you. That is game changing if you're a small player in your industry.
there are already applications out there. In fact, the demo that I did about 6 months ago, I try to throw the AI, you know, person I was talking to, throw them off in terms of
Right.
like, you want an appointment for Tuesday or Wednesday, 2:30. I'm like, I'm not available that day. How about Saturday? No, no, we're not available. So I was trying to throw them off
Curveballs. Nice.
and still bring me back. And it still was a little quirky. You could figure out, but this is new technology.
Yes.
A year from now, you'll be able to talk to some AI bot, and you're not going to know the difference. I mean,
Correct.
it's
You'll
just
never know you're
so,
talking to a machine.
yeah.
And again, so if you're a small business owner, that's one of the things we talk about in terms of the OODA loop of being aware and continuously going through a cycle of what's going on in your ecosystem, your marketplace. Because those changes, you have to think, and we'll just keep on with that example of an AI bot cold calling on your behalf, that they can do hundreds of calls, they don't take breaks, don't take lunch. And again, we're gonna not get into the ramifications of what that does to employment for a second. We're
Correct.
going to focus on the benefit of if you have limited resources of a business owner of okay, how can this help me as a business owner, small business owner? Conversely, what if you don't do it and your competition does?
They will.
What
The competition
what do
will do
you
it. I mean, that's just, you got to assume that they will do it.
what do you lose? So getting back to the overarching thing of strategy, that's part of the strategy is that there's an awareness because again, the whole thing about creating a strategy they think is static, it's dynamic. And if you start thinking strategically and always going through that OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act continuously, every day, every week, every month. Most companies don't do that. So as a small business owner specifically, if you get really sharp about that, just doing that one thing, being able to respond faster to the environment, to the ecosystem, to the economy before any of your competitors, you'll crush them.
That's a great point. Let's talk about execution.
So execution is the how, right? So that's the third pillar. And what's interesting about the execution is that, and I talk about this in my book. Most execution fails disastrously. The execution fails, and depending on the research studies that you look at, between 60 to 80% of all strategic execution fails.
Why is that?
So there's a lack of understanding of how to go to the marketplace to make it real. There's a lack of understanding, and again, let's take it from a small business owner. So there's a lack of understanding of this ties back to the why or the vision. There's a lack of understanding of, all right, so this is the vision, this is the strategy. How am I going to execute on this? In what way am I going to execute? What does success look like? What are the milestones we are going to use? What are the metrics that we're going to use to make sure we're on course? There's a lot of course correction involved in execution, and a lot of times companies are bad at doing the course correction. Way back when NASA launched the rover to Mars for the first time, I read somewhere that it did over 1,000 course corrections from here to Mars, over 1,000 course corrections. And we don't do enough course correction. You have a great strategy, but you have to stop and look and say, okay, are we executing on it? Is the execution working? Do we need to keep doing that? Does everyone understand what their role is? Do we have metrics set in place so that we know if it's working or not working? Because again, if your execution isn't looked at regularly, you won't be able to course correct.
You talk about course correction, and earlier you talked about companies looking at sales every quarter. I look at sales every week. I think that, because everything works in such a fast cycle, that if you're a business owner and you wait 3 months to make that course correction, it might be too late. You might not even make it.
Yeah,
but if you look at sales every week, you can correct
each industry
in a week.
Has its own sales cycle, and you have to figure out what that looks like, and you're gonna have to look at it in a way where you have the vision to look at it frequently, and I think that is lost upon people. To your point, they look at it usually quarterly or yearly, and then they get to the end of the year and they're like, oh, we missed our number. What happened? And we're like, well, you never stop to say the first quarter in, is this working? Is this not working? Are we executing as planned? Are we hitting the milestones, the goals, the metrics? And if not, what do we need to change? What do we need to dump, if you will?
Yeah, I think that the more frequently, talking about quarterly, that means that, 4 times a year you looked at how you're doing in sales and revenue. But if you look at it every week, you have 50 times or 52 times to make a course correction. So you can certainly have more opportunities to make the slight changes. You can always, I think that the more you look at that more often, more frequency, the better opportunities you have to make those changes.
Right.
Otherwise,
and part of that,
right.
And part of that in execution is having a sales process.
Yes.
The challenge, and again, this goes back to being a small business owner. The challenge is you launched your company, hopefully it took off, you're doing great, you hired more people, and you probably did a lot of things in the early days, the early years, that were not scalable, that were not repeatable, but somehow you managed to get to where you are now. But what got you here won't get you there. And you have to have a repeatable process in place, sales specifically, that as you grow, you have a whole process to onboarding this person, training them, monitoring them, giving them the tools to succeed, and it's repeatable. The sales process has to be repeatable, but too many people wing it. And a lot of the failure of execution is due to people winging it.
Yeah, I mean, sales is an art, and we can talk about another podcast about the art of selling. It's a whole different podcast in itself. A question that I will have for you, Derek, is what is the most common mistake that you see that small business owners make when it comes to their sales strategy, and how can they fix it?
Well, we kind of touched upon it briefly in terms of regularly looking at seeing, is it working? The second part, though, is really having an understanding of your unique value proposition. What makes you different in your industry? And that changes. You and I were talking yesterday on our pre-call, and I joked about Domino's Pizza. Right?
Yes.
And back in the day, in the early days, I know I'm dating myself here, so don't laugh. The logo or the slogan of Domino's was fresh, hot pizza delivered to your door in 30 minutes or less. No one said it was the best pizza. No one said they used the best ingredients, but it was hot and in your door in 30 minutes. So if you had the munchies, you were set. And most business owners don't understand that you may not have the best product, the best service, but there's something in there that's unique. It's different. And from the a perspective of strategy and execution, if you're not clear on what your UVP or your unique value proposition is, it's going to be rough for you because now you're seen as a commodity. And if you're viewed by your potential audience, what I should say, your target customer, your target client, if you're viewed as a commodity, your margins are going to suffer, your sales are going to suffer, and in the long term, your business might not even make it. So you have to figure out, how do I make myself unique? The challenge in sales, especially in execution, is that if it's an apples to apples comparison, then it's going to get down to who's got the cheapest price. That's not a place
Correct.
you
Yes.
want to be as a
Yeah.
business owner. You want to make it an apples to oranges comparison. Don't ever let them give don't ever give your potential customer, prospective client, an apples to apples comparison. It's going to be painful and you're going to lose margin. It's going to hurt you in the long run. So how can you tweak your offerings in a way so that it's a little bit different? It's a little bit just whatever it is, and you have to really sit and reflect upon that so that when you send a proposal or you're pitching a prospective customer, client, what have you, they can't compare it to anything else. Critical step in selling.
And I'll give you another mistake that, I've spoken to a lot of thousands of business owners in my career. And a common mistake, eventually we start talking about their operation because if there's a mistake in the operation, something in the operation is not going well, eventually will lead to a legal problem. It's just, that's usually where sometimes it happens. But something that I don't see often is having consistent sales training program for their salespeople.
Yes.
Whomever does the sales
Yes.
training, this program, the
I'm
sales.
I'm a huge proponent of training, and again, that comes back to the military, right? You never talked about this yesterday. So one of my instructors at Buds, one of the SEAL instructors, said, the difference between an amateur and professional, the amateur practices till they get it right. The professional practices until they can't get it wrong. So the sales
It's
process
a
is
great quote.
critical. Yeah, that stuck with me. That's been floating around my head for 30 years. So the sales process is critical. The systems, all that stuff is critical. It's it all. I mean, I love what you're saying. You're right on.
The I was going to say something kind of a missed. Oh yes, I didn't say this to you yesterday, so something new you will learn about me today. My first job out of college was selling cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I worked for
Okay.
Royal Buick
So
in
you,
Tampa, and what
yeah.
they did for training, they sent us to Royal Buick Automotive for 4 weeks
Wow.
to train. It's like yeah, they call it Royal University. I don't know if they're still around, but basically it was in Birmingham, Alabama, and they sent all the salespeople for 4 weeks to learn how to sell cars. And
Yeah.
they went into
That's
product
amazing.
knowledge, prospecting, and we did a lot of role playing, and that really pays off at the end.
Yeah, it
Role
does.
playing is
It,
essential.
and most companies don't put enough time into training. They usually will put some basic training in your onboarding early couple of months, but the training has to be ongoing, continuous. 'Cause again, we talk about the OODA loop and the dynamic nature of the world we live in now. Everything's faster. Ongoing training is important. Every team I've ever led, we always had continuous ongoing training from every perspective. And again, this goes back to my time in the military. You do it again and again and again until you can do it in your sleep.
So, you know, uh, my clients are mostly business owners. I mentioned to you before. So, a small business owner, it doesn't have a big budget. It doesn't have, the budget to hire a professional sales training company to come in, like the ones that you and I know, or maybe have participated in. What can a business owner do, kind of a do-it-yourself approach to develop a training program for, say, he has 3 salespeople, just for example?
We take a step back and deconstruct what worked for you. What got you to where you how did you get to where you are now? And then that forms a foundation you can build from. We talked about this. What got you here won't get you there. But the foundational aspect, if you can understand it and explain it to your team, you can create a process from that. And yes, I know for a business owner, like, wow, I'm already working 60, 70 hours a week. I don't have time to do that. Make the time. Because here's the thing. You either pay now or you pay later, but you will pay a price. I recommend you pay the price now in terms of creating a sales process where you break down where have we gotten our best customers from, our clients? Where have the margins been the best? Create your target profile of that perfect customer client. Have an understanding of the sales process that you go through and break it down to steps. Back up, break it down. Like for me, what I train my team is, and there's different acronyms that different people use in sales. There's MEDPIC and MEDIC. I'm big on PACT. So it's pain, authority, consequence, target, profile, and timing. And so if you can train your team to understand that, small business owner, there's a pain you solve. What is it? It's really important because nothing happens unless there's a pain, right? We'll get into that in a little bit. Authority. Who has the authority to write a check? So as a business owner, you had a lot of people write checks for you in the early days. You have to train your team. Are they talking to the right people? Because salespeople can spend a lot of time talking to the wrong people who cannot write checks at the end of the day. Wasted all that time and energy.
Yeah.
And then C, consequence. What are the consequences if this person, your prospective client or customer, does not move forward? Again, we're very pain driven. We can get into that. I get into that a lot in the book. So what are the consequences if they don't move forward? What are the consequences? They say, nah, never mind. We're not going to do anything. Really important. You have to understand that. And you can train your sales team on training that, because if you understand that you have a prospect that the consequences are going to be severe, that's a good prospect. Conversely, if it's a prospect where the consequences won't be severe, don't waste your time. Saying no early in the sales cycle is a really important trait. But again, you have to understand that. You have to train your team to understand that, because you as a business owner, you should know by now who you're wasting time, who's a waste of your time.
Correct.
You have to write that down and create a process to understand that the consequences. If the consequences aren't severe enough in your industry for them to move forward, hit the eject button.
Yeah.
And then we get into the target. Who's your ideal customer target? What do they look like? What is their budget? Geographically, where are they? Whatever is unique to you. But you have to have a really clear understanding of that, because salespeople will just go everywhere. As a business owner, your job is to keep them focused on the highest probability prospects. So if you have an ideal target profile for them to refer to, they can say, oh yeah, no, this guy over here is going to waste my time, or this guy over here is going to waste my time. They're not our target. We never sell to this target type, or in the past when we did, it was a low margin deal and they're a pain in the ass as a customer. We don't want that. And finally, timing. The last T is timing. Where are they in the cycle of buying? How soon do they want to pull the trigger? How soon can they cut a check for you? Again, as a business owner, you've been doing this long enough. Intuitively, you know this. You know that if this person who's a prospect has a time where they need to get this implemented by this date, whether, again, it's unique to your industry, next week, next month, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, if they don't fall within those parameters, hit the eject button. So all those things, I try to simplify it. Pain, authority, consequence, target profile, and timing. Write that down so that your sales team understands what that process looks like, what success looks like.
Yep. We have a few more minutes before we finish the segment. What they taught us in sales school was qualify, qualify, qualify.
Yes.
That's so important.
It is. Yeah, it is. And let me add to that. It is because, generally speaking, the traditional sales funnel starts very wide at the top with a whole bunch of different prospects, and then they work their way through the sales funnel to the bottom and what we hope is a sale for you. Here's the thing, though. We spend so much time, and I mean waste is the word I should use. We waste so much time at the top of the funnel on prospective customers that should have never been in that sales funnel. Now, part of the challenge is sometimes salespeople want to fluff up their sales pipeline and make it look good. Part of the sales leader's job is to make sure they understand if this is vapor, if it's BS, if it's nonsense, and say, no, kick it out of the CRM. This is nonsense. It's vaporware. It's vapor. So that they have a smaller funnel at the top, but there's an increased probability of them closing those at the bottom.
Yeah, there's more quality leads. Yes.
But to your point, though, qualify. But salespeople have happy years, and we want anyone who says hello to us or talks to us is now a prospect. That's not how it works.
It doesn't work that way. They learned that the hard way.
Yes.
I want to quote something from your book, and it's actually at the end. So I did read the book. And it says the role of a sales leader is multifaceted and challenging, but it is also incredibly rewarding. By integrating vision, strategy, execution, collaboration, and great leadership, you can create high-performing sales organization that not only meets its targets, but also contributes to the broader goals of continued success despite the economic environment. Your leadership can inspire trust, drive innovation, and achieve lasting impact. That's a great quote.
Thank you.
And this is a great book. This is The Strategic Sales Leader by Derek Wellington Johnson. I'll put it here for the YouTube audience. Derek, how can people find you?
Well, you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I think you'll have my link on your show notes. Also, you can email me directly at Derek. It's Derek spelled D-E-R-E-K, Delta, Echo, Ranger, Echo, Kilo. Derek at derekWjohnson.com.
And then also they can type your name in LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
Because we'll have your LinkedIn profile in our show notes, as well as the book. They can get it through Amazon as well. You have the Amazon. You can type Derek Wellington Johnson at Amazon, or type Strategic Sales Leader. It'll show up. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. Whether you're a small business or organization, if you are in the business of sales, if you have a business, you're selling. Derek, I want to thank you very much for coming today. I hope you come back. I had a lot of questions I did not ask you, so we're definitely going to do another session at some point. Maybe we'll go deeper into sales training and do a deep dive into that topic. But I truly appreciate you coming to the show. I'm very excited. I'm pretty sure our audience will really get a lot from our topic today, and also for our talk today, and also from the book as well. Thank you very much.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Before I close, I want to remind our audience how they can reach me. If you want to reach me, again, my email is rich@richsierra.com. If you want to learn more about the legal services that we offer, the website is floridasmallbusinesslegalcenter.com. We're in youtube.com/@RichardSierra. You can call us at 866-842-5202. Remember that Business SOS, 8 Common Legal Mistakes business owners make and how to avoid them. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can ask for your local bookstores as well. Remember that if you like the podcast, please follow us in Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you enjoy your shows. You're watching this via YouTube, please subscribe as well. Share it with your friends. Until next week, this is Rich Sierra. Remember that my goal is to help you succeed.